Hi, and welcome to Yeti at Large. This is a channel focused on making the most out of what you have, no matter where you're at. Thanks for tuning in and helping out. Thank you for joining us today while we look at the transit labor issue from a slightly different perspective. I grew up in a railroad family, and I remember the last major strike that took place under George H. Bush. I wanted to present a public safety angle to this issue and get a real ground level up close look. Some real beautiful artwork on some of these train cars.
If you're not intimidated and frightened by those things, you're not paying attention. When they're moving, when they're standing still, when they're being loaded or unloaded, and when businesses are deciding how they're going to run them through your neighborhood. We only got a couple of minutes before another train will be coming along here soon. This east-west rail running along Interstate 40 is one of the busiest rail corridors in the country, I argue. A lot of news lately with the railway strike and supply chain angles, but think of it from a public safety perspective. One of the big issues was centered around automation and crew size. I come from a railway family, and I'm in close communications while I was in public safety with many railway workers. Those folks are under a tremendous amount of pressure. They're highly professional, highly trained, very skilled, very capable, and responsible for a machine moving at freeway speeds that's net weight heavier than an aircraft carrier sometimes with the length of some of these trains. The challenges that they face range from fires to mechanical issues, obviously derailments and accidents. They have serious security and clearance issues, some of the chemicals and components that they haul. Then you've got these passengers that want to get on trains or get off trains or get in front of trains and get under trains. It happens all the time. If I had 2 cents to add to the negotiations for the union contract for railway, I would definitely want a minimum of 2 professionals operating that. The engineer and the conductor, I know there's some title. But just like a commercial jet, you want no less than 2 people in the cab of the engines up front running that thing, if for no other reason than to think about the workload and what happens when you have to stop the train on the tracks. The railways don't like that. I've heard some absurd figures of how much money it costs them to stop a large freight train. And many times in public safety, we had to, whether somebody got in front of the train and under the train, or a vehicle, or somebody was on the train and we had to get them off of it. I've heard estimates of $10,000 a minute to stop these freight trains. If you're in the know and you're aware of that, will you please put a comment below and give us some kind of accurate figure? It'd be interesting to see, albeit I'm certain it's incredibly expensive. These trains are dangerous when they're moving, but they're very dangerous when they're sitting still. There are 2 tracks here side by side. I'll get you some different shots in a minute. And they're trains constantly moving in opposite directions. And in the corners of these things, these trains will lean. Sometimes it's amazing. I did not like being next to a train when it was stopped. I didn't like having to get on them to get people off of them. Just all around terrible. If you want to look at the current supply chain issues and freight, obviously trains play a major role in that, but also look at it from a public safety perspective. My vote is for 2 trained professionals at all times in the engines on those things. And these people, they've got to work realistic work schedules. They've got to have days off. They've got to be able to use their vacation time. I don't want an engineer driving a 75,000 ton vehicle at freeway speeds, tired, exhausted, upset, or ill.
At this point, I'm having a hard time chasing away the memories of some difficult calls that I had related to this exact area of the tracks. I was saved by the high wind that kicked up. If the recording had continued, you'd heard me carry on about if you really want to see the soul of a company or the priorities of an organization, look at their budgets. That'll tell you what they're interested in. Are they chasing just the bottom dollar to put a little more money in their shareholders' pockets, or do they really have all stakeholders' interests in line? These trains, conflict with a train is almost as old as the United States. Yeah, some tough memories out here. Anyway, it just goes to show there's a lot of different pressures on these organizations, and it affects a lot of different people and a lot of different professions. Why don't we go over and look at the flowers instead for a while? Love this time of year. The beauty's incredible. Some of these flowers are hanging on even though we're having pretty cool nights. As of the publishing of this video, I understand there has been a cool-off period and that the professionals with the railways are back to work or staying at work. This area that I accessed, you can get to it on an old abandoned chunk of Route 66. Trains climb up this amazing grade and then come screaming down the other side. One thing to really keep in mind as well is the railways play an essential function to our military and our national defense. You can see the train in the background going right through the Navajo Army Depot. The sovereign Navajo Nation isn't too far from here, a couple clicks northeast. They prefer to be referred to as the Dene, the people. A lot of good friends that are residents of those nations, both Navajo and Hopi. When it comes to the public safety angle of the railways, also keep in mind that they intersect not only military bases, seaside, ports, and shipping, but your downtown. Notice there are no guard rails or arms protecting people from this train. You wouldn't catch me standing that close to that train. You'll see a tanker car come through in a minute. I think it's carrying high fructose corn syrup, but it could just as easily be carrying anhydrous ammonia or any one of a couple of dozen pretty nasty chemical compounds. Let's give our railway workers a break. Let's give them the time off they need. Let's take good care of people. This is my great-grandfather's railway watch. My mother coincidentally gave it to me today as I'm publishing this. Notice what time it had stopped at. This watch is as tough and as well built as the people who work our railways today.